Tonight, former State Minister Gareth Ward charged with child sex offences. The Premier demands his immediate resignation. Protesters blockade Port Botany, fury from truck drivers and wharfies. Once again, the city drawn to a halt. A Chinese passenger plane's 2-minute plunge, the shocking crash into a mountain, all 132 people dead. New Russian military footage, its excuse for bombing a shopping centre. Now Russian snipers open fire on peaceful protesters. Vegetable prices skyrocket, rises of up to 75%, flooding to blame. And the rush for tickets to farewell Shane Warne, while Steve Waugh breaks his silence in tribute.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Mark Ferguson.
Good evening. State Parliament has been rocked by shocking sex charges against South Coast MP Gareth Ward. The former minister says he'll fight the allegations involving a teenager and a man, but the Premier says if the MP doesn't quit Parliament, he wants him kicked out.
Gareth Ward stood down from Cabinet last year after confirming he was being investigated for child sex offences.
My job is to focus on me.
Today, the former minister was charged and the Premier's response was swift. Should Mr Ward not resign, the government will move a motion to remove him from the Parliament. Entitled to the presumption of innocence, added Dominic Perrottet, but
the standards expected of an elected member of Parliament are not compatible with the seriousness of the charges he is facing.
Clearly, the position of the member for Kiama is completely untenable.
Gareth Ward walked into Lake Illawarra Police Station at midday, charged with indecently assaulting a 17-year-old boy at Meru Meadow on the south coast in 2013 and sexually abusing a 27-year-old man in Sydney 2 years later. To his electorate, he wrote, "I am innocent and I intend to prove it," saying people with a presumption of innocence should be allowed the opportunity to defend themselves from claims that are simply untrue. He's had a colourful political career. In 2020, naked and incoherent, Mr Ward startled neighbours after undergoing surgery.
I was scared.
He was drunk as
obviously embarrassed about what happened.
In 2017, he made headlines in New York, the victim of an extortion attempt by two men he paid for a massage. Here in his state electorate of Kiama, Gareth Ward has enjoyed immense political popularity. He first won office here in 2011 and then subsequently increased the share of his vote to beyond 50% in the following two elections. Should he step aside from Parliament while this is going on?
He's doing a pretty good job, I think.
It's not ideal. He needs to have his day in court, doesn't he?
Mr Ward will start that process at Port Kembla Court mid-May. Likely not as a parliamentarian and almost certainly not as a Liberal Party member, the Premier is seeking his expulsion from there too. Robert O'Vardy.
Climate activists brought Port Botany to a standstill this morning, infuriating truckies and police. One man from the vigilante group was arrested, with police vowing to arrest up to 20 other protesters who ran off after being confronted by angry workers.
At Botany, the barricades went up before the sun did.
I'm going to be climbing a 9-metre high monopole.
Climate change protesters blockaded the entry and exit of the country's biggest container port. Live streaming it all was this man.
We are here today disrupting a rigged system which is driving the climate crisis.
The 23-year-old used a fake name and read from a script calling it a peaceful protest, but it amounted to economic vandalism as drivers and companies were held to ransom for more than 2 hours.
Mate, some of these blokes, they own their own trucks. If these wheels don't turn, they don't make a living.
It's really stupid and it just affected everybody. I miss my slot and all that.
Roads in and out of the port ground to a halt, trucks queued for kilometres. When negotiations failed, police rescue was called in. Commandeering a scissor lift, they removed his protest banner but needed glue remover to unstick his hands from the pole. Arrested to the cheers of truckies.
Is there anything you want to say to the people you've inconvenienced today?
The New South Wales Police Force won't tolerate that sort of behaviour and will take swift and appropriate action as we have today.
Blockade Australia was behind 11 days of similar protests at the Port of Newcastle last year.
Climate collapse is going to piss a lot more people off if we don't get real action on it soon.
Whatever punishment is handed out, it's unlikely to deter these activists. The same protest group is preparing for more disruptions in June.
And with protesters targeting vital infrastructure, authorities are calling for tough penalties.
Well, I hope that the full weight of the law is actually thrown at these individuals, because I'm sick and tired of these people getting in the way of people's lives.
Andrew Denny, 7 News.
In breaking news, Sydney's long-suffering train commuters are facing new frustrating delays tonight. Isabel Mullen is at Martin Place Station. Isabel, what's happening?
Well, good evening, Mark. Commuters have been thrown off guard once again. They've arrived here at Martin Place this evening only to find that all lines have to be diverted around the city centre. All services have been cancelled because of a mechanical issue on one of the trains. Staff here say they are working hard to remove that train so services can resume this evening, but they expect the wait time will be about 40 minutes. So at the moment, passengers are being diverted to buses and other services. The best thing tonight is to avoid Martin Place altogether. Mark.
Isabel Mullen in the city, thank you. The NRL will consider standing down St George star George Burgess before Thursday night's clash against the Sharks. The 29-year-old ran from Mascot Police Station last night after being charged with the alleged sexual touching of a woman earlier this month. The Dragons will name Burgess in their squad, but the NRL may invoke the no-fault stand-down policy.
We need to satisfy ourselves on a number of matters. We will do that now and do that, as I said earlier, fairly expediently. Burgess is due to face court next month. It's China's worst air disaster in 3 decades. 132 passengers and crew feared dead when a China Eastern Airlines flight plummeted to the ground in remote countryside. An investigation is already underway into what led to the terrifying final moments for everyone on board.
Plunging to the ground at an ungodly speed, the heart-stopping final moments of a China Eastern Airlines plane in a near vertical nosedive, bursting into flames on impact. The domestic flight left Kunming bound for Guangzhou. It was cruising at just over 29,000 feet when it rapidly lost altitude. It stabilised at 7,400 feet, then hurtled to the ground. Rescue teams sent in by the dozens found pieces of the plane in the rugged mountains, but no survivors.
Whatever it was a catastrophic event, an airplane descending that quickly out of the sky. Something badly happened to cause the pilots to lose control of that airplane.
Until investigators find the black box, the cause of the crash remains a mystery. The Boeing 737-800 is considered a workhorse of the skies. It's the predecessor of the 737 MAX, which was grounded after fatal crashes in Indonesia in 2018 and Ethiopia in 2019. Pilots are baffled and say these planes simply do not fall out of the sky.
It was designed almost to be like the Model T of airplanes so that anybody could fly it.
It's the backbone of Australia's domestic airline fleet and has been for almost 40 years now.
China Eastern's fleet is now grounded, the airline and nation reeling from its worst aviation disaster in more than a decade. Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
Russia has been obliterating Ukrainian towns from the air. Now troops have been seen opening fire on peaceful protesters on the ground. The West believes Vladimir Putin's brutal advance is slowing, but it's feared an approaching stalemate may push him down a more dangerous path.
Russian reconnaissance in the sky. Pictures it claims show Ukraine's military reloading missiles at a shopping centre turned weapons depot. Allegations it used to strike with precision, and the impact is horrifying. An apocalyptic landscape where a bustling mall used to be. At least 8 people dead in the most powerful explosion to hit the capital Kyiv so far. I don't feel safe anywhere in Ukraine, this woman says. Here's a new example of why. South in the occupied city of Kherson, a peaceful resistance is disrupted by their Russian invaders. Gunfire to scatter the crowds. Flash grenades. And chasing people through the streets, what appear to be armed Russian soldiers. Vladimir Putin's troops running like terrorists. Yet Russia still denies it's targeting civilians. Ukraine's president calls those Russian soldiers slaves, shooting at free people. This is what their towns look like in Kherson. The few residents left behind finally accept, some through tears, that they can't stay any longer. There's simply nothing left.
Убивали всех людей. Это сволочи, это гады, блядь, паразиты. От німці наші наступали, бачив я, бо я той так коло коров був. Так вони ж над людьми не здівалися.
Russian troops don't appear to be gaining significant ground, but are wiping everything they can off the map.
What's happening in Mariupol is a massive war crime, destroying everything, bombarding and killing everybody.
Ukraine's military continues to boast about its fight back, but NATO fears a dangerous stalemate is fast approaching.
He's already used chemical weapons in the past, and we should be careful what's about to come.
British defence analysts believe the Russian ground invasion has reached a critical point where only one major offensive can be maintained at a time. The focus right now, the besieged city of Mariupol. If it falls, Moscow can send resources elsewhere. Potentially Kharkiv and the capital Kyiv, where Russian troops appear to be digging in, leaving civilians picking through the remnants of their lives. In Lviv, Ukraine, Hugh Whitfeld, 7 News.
And let's go to reporter Jeff Parry in Ukraine. Now, Jeff, there's some talk of a coup to overthrow Vladimir Putin.
Mark, most Russians get a censored view of the war in Ukraine, but there are people who actually know what's going on. Russia's military command, which has been fought to a standstill, and the oligarchs, billionaires who live lifestyles that you and I can only dream of. Sanctions have taken away their boats and their aircraft and their bank accounts, and it's thought that the loss of that luxury lifestyle might make them fertile ground for a coup against President Putin. It would be a brave move, but one they might be willing to take to extract Russia from this war. In the capital, Kyiv, they have about 24 hours remaining on their curfew there, which was brought in after that missile attack levelled a shopping centre, killing 8 people. This Thursday, it will be 4 weeks since Russia invaded Ukraine. President Zelensky is still waiting to hear from President Putin on his latest offer of peace talks. Mark?
Jeff Parry, thank you. Intimate details of Ben Roberts-Smith's romantic affairs have emerged on day 58 of his defamation trial. His former mistress wept as she described how she hoped to marry him and how the VC recipient allegedly mistreated her.
Awarded the highest military honour for devotion to duty, and today we heard of his devotion to a relationship outside of his marriage. His mistress, described here as person 17, met him at a charity event. He started talking to me and we just started flirting. I spoke of the problems I'd been having in my own marriage. He was unhappy too. I feel like I can't leave, he said. We then went back to his hotel room and we had sex several times. The court heard they became addicted to each other. After a few weeks, I said that I thought I was falling in love with him, and he said, "You don't want to fall in love with me. I'm not the greatest guy." We talked a lot about our future together, that we would get married. Their relationship, the court heard, was plagued by jealousy and mistrust. I got a pregnancy test. The result was positive. He told me, "I'm going to want some proof." Robert Smith is suing 9 newspapers after it implied he was a war criminal and violent towards his mistress. In 2018, person 17 said she attended an event at Parliament House where she was accused of being drunk and flirting with dignitaries. She left the event and fell down the stairs. Back at the hotel, he was pacing around, getting angry. He punched me. I ended up lying on the bed and I just lay still because I didn't know what he was going to do next, she sobbed. She will continue giving evidence tomorrow, where she will be questioned by his lawyers under cross-examination. Leonie Ryan, 7 News.
Scott Morrison has labelled Anthony Albanese gutless, claiming he's dodging questions about a toxic culture within the Labor Party. The Prime Minister's attack comes as the coalition prepares to hand down the budget and launch into campaign overdrive.
Cuddling a koala.
Say hello to my little friend.
And snatching a selfie then catching a high-flying high five and flashing a smile at a crocodile.
Here we go. You want to get that?
Before baring his own teeth.
But what we've got from Anthony Albanese, at the first sign of hard questions, he has gone into complete hiding. Frankly, I think it's pretty gutless.
3 days and no news conferences from the opposition leader, accused of not acting on the alleged bullying of Senator Kimberley Kitching, who died 12 days ago of a heart attack.
He can't just dismiss away hard issues. Now, that's not what Prime Ministers can do.
What this Prime Minister did today was lead a pre-budget announcement blitz, $60 million to attract foreign tourists back.
Getting bums on seats on planes.
And faster NBN for rural and regional areas. Labor announcing today it will bring down another budget before the end of the year, redirecting the government spending towards its own priorities, all hinging on an important if.
So if, and I appreciate that this is a big if, but if we win office in May.
Labor's budget would fund free childcare, free trades training, climate and other priorities.
His spending won't stop, and that's why you can't trust Labor with Australia's finances.
Jim Chalmers says it's not just what governments spend that matters, but how they spend it. Mark Riley, 7 News.
Australia's Defence Forces will be expanded with a new Space Command to protect the country against cyber attacks, especially from China. Defence Minister Peter Dutton singled out Beijing, warning it has the capacity to launch a digital onslaught from outer space.
It's a domain which must be used to deter aggression rather than become a new realm for conflict.
Australia will also launch satellites with the US and share surveillance information. A driver has been killed in Lansvale after being trapped in an SUV that rolled during a nasty crash on the Hume Highway. 2 other people were injured. The crash shut all westbound lanes near Hollywood Drive around 2 o'clock, causing major traffic delays. Fairfield Police are investigating. Cost of living increases just keep coming, with some vegetables hit with extraordinary price hikes of up to 75%. Consumers are being urged to shop smarter as supermarkets offer discounts on some key foods.
Almost $11 for a kilo of cucumbers, $13 for capsicum. The price of produce has skyrocketed, and that's if you can get what you want at all.
Most of the damage, the severe damage, has been on the eastern border, on the coastline.
Floods, on top of lingering COVID-related supply issues, mean the price of some vegetables has gone up by 75%. With broccoli now moving above $7 a kilo and prices set to stay high for at least 6 months.
More than ever, customers should be really well planned and take advantage of the offers.
From tomorrow, Coles will cut the prices of its pork shoulder roast boneless to $8 per kilo from $10, and of its pork leg roast boneless to $9 per kilo from $11.
Customers are transitioning to white meats and affordable cuts of meat as well.
Consumer confidence has plunged to its lowest level since September 2020, and many think things will only get worse. Inflation today is at 3.5%. Consumers believe it'll hit 6% within 2 years. Economists attribute our gloom to wages failing to keep up with rising costs.
We know that petrol prices have a really big impact on people's expectations about inflation.
But some hope.
We do think that by the end of this year, real wage growth will be positive, and I think that'll be a big boost to consumer sentiment.
Gemma Acton, 7 News.
In the past few hours, more than 30,000 people have secured tickets to Shane Warne's memorial service at the MCG next week. It's shaping up as a star-studded farewell for the cricketing legend and larrikin.
A farewell fit for a king. And they can't catch him! Shane Warne's public send-off expected to run for 2 hours on Wednesday next week at his spiritual home, the MCG.
We've been working very closely with the family to make sure that it is an appropriate celebration of his life.
The state memorial service to get underway at 7 p.m, live streamed across the country. Warne's star qualities on display, with Elton John, Ed Sheeran and Coldplay's Chris Martin, all to send video tributes to their mate. 50,000 fans are expected to fill the MCG. When the free tickets were made available this afternoon, the website struggled to keep up.
There's no COVID limit or anything like that. It'll be as many as we can get in there.
As part of the countdown to next Wednesday's public farewell, a special documentary, Warnie, will air on the 7 Network tomorrow night, featuring a number of cricketing greats recounting the moments that made the man the legend.
Top of the list, Steve Waugh.
His legacy was that he drew people to watch cricket that would never consider doing it before.
Warren's captain for much of his decorated career, opening up in a rare event following a checkered past between the two.
I guess a lot of Australians saw a bit of themselves in him, that larrikin streak, and they imagine that that's if they play for Australia, that's how they want to play.
And Merv Hughes, a mentor to a star on the rise, but more importantly, a friend.
SK, beautiful man, no doubt about that. A fantastic friend. A lot of people didn't get to see the real you.
A final farewell to a legend forever with us. Liam Tapper, 7 News.
Time to check the weather now, Angie. Today has been superb.
Mark, it was like a summer's day. We enjoyed uninterrupted blue skies and some Sydney suburbs exceeded 30 degrees. It is still pretty warm in the CBD even now. We're sitting on 25 degrees with temperatures unlikely to dip much below 20 all night. Tops inland even nudge the 40s, 38 degrees at Burke and 37 for Griffith. But all of this is about to come to a sudden end. The wet weather will return tomorrow, starting with showers, but those grey skies then set in for the next week. So cumulatively, we're looking at totals in excess of 50 millimetres through this blue zone, which does include Sydney. With that change, we'll see the current warm northerly winds shift around to the south. So some cooler days will accompany all that rain. The details soon, Mark.
OK, Angie, thank you. The former Deputy Premier has accused Google's faceless people of breaking him. Next, what John Barilaro is demanding of the tech giant. Also, a tragic end in the search for a young tradie. History on Capitol Hill, the first black woman nominated to the Supreme Court faces a grilling. Later, a new biobank to track brain damage from repeated head knocks. And next, the iconic image that could become the most expensive painting of all time. Welcome back. Friends are posting tributes online for Logan Lacerdo after confirmation it was his body found at Soldiers Beach on the Central Coast nearly 2 weeks ago. The 20-year-old went missing from near Nora Head last November, with volunteers conducting extensive searches. He's being remembered as an amazing human who will never be forgotten. Police are working on a report for the coroner. Former Deputy Premier John Barilaro has taken the stand against Google, calling them faceless people who broke him. He's suing the internet giant for defamation, and while the YouTube owner has dropped its defence, it's still preparing to grill him in court.
The former Deputy Premier left the hearing today after several hours in the witness box where he unleashed on the tech giant.
What do you want to say to Google about the pain that they've inflicted on you?
I think you said it in court, mate.
They broke me. It wasn't breaking me, it broke me. I knew it was never going to end. Late yesterday, Google withdrew its final defence in the defamation proceedings after refusing to remove offensive videos posted by a YouTuber. It's bloody offensive the way Jordan Shanks used it. It was vile, not just offensive.
Do you have any message for the YouTuber?
Proceedings against Mr Shanks were settled last November. This case is about his claim for damages from Google. Mr Barilaro frustrated that no one from Google would explain why they allowed the videos to stay. People talk about the faceless men or people in politics. I'll tell you what, there are faceless people in Google. He was also asked about his mental health and the toll it's taken on him. And yes, I was in a dark place. You start looking at the way out. Mr Barilaro also expressed his hurt that Google still hasn't apologised. Far from it. Tomorrow, counsel for Google will cross-examine Mr Barilaro in a case it now concedes has no defence. Evan Batten, 7 News.
Historic hearings have begun in Washington that could see Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson become the first black woman on the US Supreme Court.
I hope that you will see how much I love our country and the Constitution and the rights that make us free.
If confirmed, the 51-year-old has pledged to be independent and neutral. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have gone to an ancient Mayan site in Belize. Dressed like tourists, they climbed the ruins of the city, which was only properly discovered in 1985. The royal couple is touring the Caribbean as part of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Year celebrations. It's one of the most iconic images of the 20th century, Andy Warhol's pop art portrait of Marilyn Monroe. Now it could be yours for a cool $270 million, and that's just the starting price. It's being auctioned by Christie's in New York and is expected to be the most expensive 20th century painting ever sold. Their parents are on the front line fighting the Russian invasion in Ukraine. Next, the siblings now calling Sydney home after a terrifying escape from the war zone. Also, the new high-tech weapon to catch drugs in the post. A movie buff's tribute to a long-lost treasure from Sydney's past.
And the late-night pub visit that raises fresh questions about the culture at West Tigers.
Welcome back. Two young Ukrainian siblings are back in each other's arms tonight after a mistake caused their separation as they tried to flee to Australia. There were emotional scenes at Sydney Airport as they were reunited after nearly a week apart.
A quick wave, a hug, relief.
Did you miss your brother?
Of course. 12-year-old Anastasia back by her brother's side after an agonising 6 days apart.
She's really tired, yeah.
An airline communication meant the siblings were separated as they tried to flee war-torn Ukraine. 9-year-old Kirill was allowed on the plane to Australia confused and alone. His sister left behind.
We lost contact for a couple of days.
The mistake meant Anastasia spent 3 days at a refugee camp in Poland by herself, while Kirill settled into a new country.
He was tired, lost and off. Now he's back to life. We're together.
Both now living out of a single backpack. This is what they escaped, a region their parents stayed behind to protect.
He is in the Armed Forces of Ukraine, defending Kiev currently.
Mother is okay and father too. They're okay.
Since the start of the war, more than 700 Ukrainian refugees have fled to Australia. Most have been women and children, and they've been welcomed with an outpouring of support.
Clothing, footwear, kids' toys, notebooks, personal hygiene products, you name it, Australians have donated it.
All of the time, we're here for you.
Georgia Holland, 7 News.
A Liberal MP has attacked her own government for imposing vaccine mandates. Tanya Davies, a state member for Mulgoa, has joined protesters demanding an end to laws that require COVID vaccinations for work.
Having the vaccine doesn't stop you from getting COVID or transmitting it.
Her position is completely untenable in the senior levels of the New South Wales government.
The former minister won't tell voters if she's vaccinated. Former federal Labor MP Craig Thompson has been arrested this afternoon just hours after being convicted of harassing his ex-partner Zoe Arnold. He was given conditional release and ordered not to contact or approach her in any way. But just after 2 p.m, he allegedly confronted Miss Arnold at a Central Coast daycare centre and was taken into custody. It's getting tougher to find adequate childcare in Sydney's outer suburbs. In the southwest, it's almost impossible to get a place without first going on a lengthy waiting list. That's if there's a centre operating at all.
They call it a childcare desert. It's not a common phrase, but at least 30% of Australian families live in one.
And that means that there are 3 children for every single spot available.
A growing problem for parents.
The nearest one to our home is like a 2-year wait and we're still waiting.
With some parents choosing to stay home until wait lists clear.
I'm just really lucky that we can afford to stay home, whereas I know a lot of people that can't do that.
Childcare deserts are commonly seen in regional areas and the outer suburbs of Sydney. In the southwest, Chipping Norton, Ingleburn, Horsley Park and Macquarie Fields have more than 6 children competing for each spot. There's more room as you get closer to the CBD. In Petersham, Surrey Hills, Pymble and Macquarie Park, there's a place for almost every child. And that's no coincidence. Because the childcare industry isn't regulated in the same way schools are, they're able to set up wherever they like, with many gravitating to more affluent suburbs because they can charge higher fees.
It's commercially driven, not driven by what's actually in the best interest of the population or where the population growth areas necessarily are.
Centres in Neutral Bay, the CBD and Freshwater cost more than $150 a day, and fees are expected to rise by 8%. Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
The Federal Police and Border Force have unveiled a new testing lab to detect weapons and illegal drugs hidden in overseas mail. Agents will refer suspicious packages to the Rapid Lab, which can even expose parts for weapons. The world-leading mobile facility will be based at Australia's largest mail processing centre in Clyde. A distinctive ute could be key to solving the mystery of $1 million silver bullion theft. Detectives have released security video of a dark Toyota Land Cruiser seen on Argyle Street at Picton early on Sunday, November the 28th last year. They want to hear from anyone who can help track down the vehicle and its occupants. 192 silver bars were stolen from a truck travelling between Sydney and Melbourne. It was demolished half a century ago, but new animation has brought one of Sydney's glorious old picture palaces back to life. The Summerhill Grosvenor opened in 1930. Spread over 4 blocks, the 2,000-seat auditorium has been described as breathtaking luxury. Today, the site houses an office block passed each day by thousands of rail commuters. But the cinema's glory days are being remembered in a new documentary, The Mysterious Disappearance of the Grosvenor. Popular tourist destinations have been hit hard by COVID and consecutive natural disasters. Next, what the government's cash splash means for our local operators. Also, what's in a name? The cost of naming Sydney's new football stadium.
Soon in sport, the NRL set for a showdown with the defiant Dragons over George Burgess.
And a southerly change tomorrow will cause temperatures to drop and bring some rain clouds too. Details soon.
Welcome back. Time now for a check on the markets with finance editor Gemma Acton.
Thanks, Mark. A strong session for our local market with the ASX 200 hitting a 2-month high of 7,341 points. Miners, including BHP and Rio Tinto, outperformed. That's as global commodity prices took another leg higher. The Aussie dollar has slipped back. It's now buying just under 74 US cents. While oil prices jumped sharply overnight, that was on news the European Union is getting closer to a ban on Russian crude imports. And by January, household spending was almost back to where it was in January 2020, before the pandemic. However, spending on some categories, including transport and restaurants, still has a lot of ground to make up. Mark.
Gemma, thank you. More now on our breaking news. And Sydney train commuters are facing long delays on the T4 line with a broken down train blocking the line near Martin Place Station. Urgent repairs are underway tonight, with passengers being told to go to Central Station for services to Hurstville, Cronulla, Waterfall or the South Coast. Queues of stranded passengers are growing at King's Cross, with buses the only alternative. Insurance giant Allianz has retained the naming rights for the new Sydney Football Stadium as part of a 6-year deal worth $36 million. Currently under reconstruction, the state-of-the-art facility already has a number of world-class events locked in, including a Justin Bieber concert and next year's Women's FIFA World Cup. Allianz Stadium is expected to be completed in time for the NRL finals in September. ANSTO, Australia's nuclear science organisation at Lucas Heights, is manufacturing a new cancer treatment that's delivering incredible results. It's called Theranostics and it's being used to fight prostate cancer that has spread throughout the body. Using radioactive drugs, tumours are hunted down and destroyed. Before and after scans show just how effective it's proving in clinical trials. Researchers are calling the treatment the game changer they've been looking for. There's new hope for regional tourism operators hit hardest by the federal government's 2-year border closure. The North Coast and Hunter are among the destinations to benefit from a cash splash that'll help restart the industry.
For international tourists visiting the Hunter Valley, it's been a long time between drinks. Operators hit hard by drought, bushfires and border closures, there's finally a reason to celebrate.
We have actually seen a pretty immediate step up in inquiry and visitation. Singapore has led the charge.
Now a $60 million funding boost by the federal government hopes to get more tourists down under. including $15 million to spruik the regions to the world, from Queensland's Sunshine Coast, the north coast of New South Wales and the Hunter, the Great Ocean Road, Uluru and the Kimberley.
I think the regions are ready and standing by for that influx.
But there's very little for our major cities.
Our cities need an awful lot of help. Our big cities, our capital cities, have seen a massive drop in international visitors.
But as tourism numbers increase, many businesses fear they will be unable to keep up. Now, industry groups are ramping up calls on the government to remove any penalties for older Australians who are willing to work. They're arguing the income threshold for aged pensioners should be increased or removed.
There will be a supply of people that can help in the tourism and hospitality space.
Taylor Aiken, 7 News.
The long-term effects of repeated head knocks are becoming better understood. Now a Sydney research team is hoping its new biobank will provide more answers about the illness that can strike down athletes in their prime. Don't miss that story soon on 7 News. But now Mel is here with Sport. Mel, trouble brewing between the Dragons and the NRL.
Yeah, that's right, Fergo. There could be after a strong statement from the Dragons in the wake of the George Burgess allegations. Live to Michelle Bishop next. Plus a couple of all-time classic catches snare some huge wickets on different sides of the planet. And yet another blow for the Socceroos, one of their biggest names out of crucial World Cup qualifiers. Welcome back. Well, as the pressure intensifies on West Tigers coach Michael Maguire, there are fresh concerns about the culture at the joint venture. Star players Dane Laurie and James Roberts were spotted out playing the pokies the night before the humiliating loss to the Knights.
The playing group has taken ownership of Sunday's debacle against the Knights.
This is definitely on us players, I think. We haven't been performing, that's on us.
We had the game plan there in place, but we as a team didn't deliver.
Critics of the culture at the joint venture have been given even more ammunition after revelations James Roberts and Dane Laurie were spotted at a local pub in Newcastle the night before the game.
We just need to look at our mistakes and all that and just try to be better this week.
Parts of the match on Sunday were almost too much for long-suffering fans to sit through.
When you're chasing points, you do try to chance your arm a little bit, and that's when you do see the tackle, being caught on the last play.
Back-to-back losses have increased the pressure on Michael Maguire, but the players insist the criticism is unwarranted.
He's the hardest working person in this club, and he puts in hours and hours of work. He's putting his out on the chopping block, and we need to be better.
While the West Tigers dig deep to get to the core of what's really going on at the club, the mood in the Shire was the polar opposite. The resurgent Matt Moylan set up the winning try in there after the siren nail-biter against the Eels. His halves partner Nico Hines finished the job with the conversion.
I'm enjoying my stuff in the halves there with Nico, and just keep working on that.
Let's go live now to Michelle Bishop at League Central. Hello, Shell. St George Illawarra, they're headed for a showdown, it seems, with the NRL over George Burgess.
Good evening, Mel. Yes, less than 24 hours after George Burgess was charged with sexual touching without consent, he has been named on an extended bench for the St George Illawarra Dragons side to take on the Sharks tomorrow night. Now, the club issued a statement this afternoon. They say they are yet to receive the necessary and required information pertaining to the Burgess matter and therefore can't make a call on his availability. NRL CEO Andrew Abdo will review all of the evidence available to him tonight to make a call tomorrow on whether or not he will be subjected to that NRL no-fault stand-down policy, like fellow Dragon Jack de Belin, who was sidelined for 2 years. But this is definitely a distraction, an unwanted one for both the Dragons and the NRL. Mel.
No doubt about it. Thanks very much, Shell. Michelle Bishop at League Central there. The Swans have re-signed the young gun they are grooming to eventually replace Lance Franklin. Despite interest from rival clubs, emerging key forward Logan McDonald has re-signed until 2024. The Swans host Geelong at the SCG on Friday night, with Buddy just 4 goals away from 1,000.
Real generational footballers on both teams, and so it's exciting for the fans to come along. Hopefully they get here nice and early because we're expecting a really big crowd.
You'll see that game live on 7 Mate. Usman Khawaja fell in the nervous 90s for the second time in the series on day one of the deciding test in Pakistan. From 2 for 8, Khawaja and Steve Smith combined for a 138-run stand last night. Smith was trapped in front by Naseem Shah on 59, while Khawaja defied illness to get to within 9 runs of a century before being brilliantly caught by Baba Azam.
That is a magnificent catch. That is outstanding stuff.
I was really struggling to be out there, and I'm just telling myself, just keep going.
He's done well, resuming at 5 for 232 this afternoon. Alex Carey and Cameron Green both cashed in with half centuries, pushing Australia's first innings total to 5 for 326 a short time ago. Well, the classic catches kept on coming in our women's team's top of the group clash with South Africa at the One Day World Cup in New Zealand. After Ash Gardner's one-handed screamer, Mignon du Preez did this.
What a catch! What a sensational catch! Mignon du Preez has pulled off a screamer.
Yes, she did. Skipper Meg Lanning's unbeaten 135 guided the Aussies to their 272-run target with nearly 5 overs to spare. The team won all 6 of their matches in the group stage. The Socceroos have lost arguably their most important player. Tom Rogic will miss the Crunch World Cup qualifiers against Japan and Saudi Arabia with an ankle injury. Graham Arnold has accepted a $25,000 fine for breaching COVID isolation rules. In a statement, the coach apologised for what he described as an error of judgment. Arnold needs to return a negative result when his isolation period ends to rejoin the team for Thursday night's Japan clash at Stadium Australia. Yes, so there's a lot going on. A few blows there for the Socceroos, but fingers crossed it's a massive game against Japan.
Yeah, and a good chance for some young guns.
Yep.
Thanks, Tom.
Right. Thanks.
It's an insidious, tragic disease striking many of the world's top athletes at the peak of their careers. Called CTE, it's the brain damage caused by repeated head knocks. Now a new Sydney centre is devoted to prevention, early diagnosis and treatment.
Former Newcastle Knight James McManus is no stranger to hard knocks. Diagnosed with CTE, a type of dementia forcing him off the field. He's 36 but has been told he has the brain of a 50-year-old.
Yeah, there was something more seriously wrong with my brain. I do things very differently if I had my time again.
The symptoms include paranoia, mood swings and severe anxiety. James' wife, Isha, could only watch helplessly from the sidelines as his condition deteriorated.
We've got strategies in place where we manage the triggers and the things that we know cause those behaviours.
James' brain is one of the newest subjects of Australia's first biobank, launched today by Macquarie University. Led by Dr. Rowena Mobbs, it will collect information on symptoms, test samples and brain scans from people who have had repeated head injuries.
We envisage as a national program, and we would like to have internationally relevant work.
Former rugby union player Michael Lippman, another patient, says he's no longer employable because of damage to his brain.
When my 3-year-old son has a tantrum, how I can't really cope with that, and I just put my head between my legs.
While Macquarie University leads the way when it comes to CTE research in Australia, Dr. Rowena Mobbs and her very small team currently have no funding. In fact, they do all research and testing in their own time.
It does take significant resources to perform this long-term dementia research.
Tom Saker, 7 News.
Now Angie's back with the forecast, and Ange, that sunshine was nice while it lasted.
Mark, gorgeous today, but you are right, the clouds are fast approaching. Details on how much rain we'll see next.
Tonight at 10:45, as it happens, live to Ukraine for every new development in the war-torn nation. Urgent investigations underway. What happened to the China Eastern flight? Live to the region. And new predictions for Australia's soaring rental market. Join me for the latest from 7 News at 10:45.
Army of retirees ready to jump back into work. 250,000 jobs going begging. The solution to solve workforce shortages. 7 News at 6.
Tonight's 7 News headlines. Former Minister Gareth Ward is vowing to fight sex offence charges involving a teenager and a man. Sydney train commuters are facing long delays tonight on the T4 line, with a broken down train blocking the tracks near Martin Place. 132 passengers and crew are feared dead after a Chinese plane nosedived into a mountain. And more than 30,000 people have snapped up tickets for Shane Warne's public memorial at the MCG next week. Now here's Angie with Sydney's weather.
Thank you, Mark. It has been a beautiful autumn day across our city. Endless sunshine and the third consecutive rain-free day, which hasn't happened for more than a month. We reached a top of 27.7 degrees in the CBD. Very warm coming off the back of a cooler low of 16.1. Our western suburbs even cracked the 30s, 31 for Richmond, Penrith, Campbelltown and Bankstown. A lovely top of 25 degrees at Katoomba. Now, the beautiful conditions today were produced under high pressure along the state's coastline, but we are watching a trough just sitting over the state's west. Tomorrow we'll see that trough deepen and move towards the northeast, and that will coincide with a cold front crossing the south here, bringing unsettled conditions. No sign of that change for Brisbane as yet. Fine and 31 degrees tomorrow. Canberra and Melbourne, though, will see a shower or two. Staying fine for Hobart, but it will be cool with that change, 17 degrees. Statewide showers and the chance of storms are likely right through the east, mostly about the southern and central coast. However, lighter falls could still develop across the inland. The only region likely to miss out entirely is the far northeast, but overall we aren't expecting very heavy falls unless those severe storms develop in certain pockets. Showers picking up for Sydney too, up to 10 millimetres in the east, 20 possible in our west. The chance of a storm is there too, most likely during the morning or early afternoon. Tops are going to be cooler with that grey southerly change. It's not looking warmer than the mid-20s across the board. On the water, current northerlies will swing around to the south from tomorrow morning, generally around 15 to 20 knots, but they are forecast to pick up to 30 knots offshore during the early afternoon. So wind warnings do cover Sydney waters and continue right down to the border. For the CBD, it is going to be a warm, clear night, dipping to 19 degrees. By tomorrow, though, we'll notice the beginning of that grey change. Showers developing, a possible storm too, and a cooler top of 24. To the week ahead, the rain clouds set in on Thursday. Much cooler maximums, 22 degrees in the city, 21 in our west. The heaviest rainfall day will be Friday, at least 15 to 20 millimetres likely, then lighter showers persisting for the rest of the outlook period. So the sunshine has been nice while it lasted this week, Mark.
Very nice while it lasted, Angie. Thank you. That is 7 News for this Tuesday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening. I'm Mark Ferguson from all the team. I hope you have a great night.